you're looking for a clean show with like, really cool graphics and intro, just take a look at the man on the right side of your screen. That's about as clean
This was a YouTube
as
show.
the show's gonna go.
Was it on YouTube?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how we even got to the point where we were hanging out as couples, because we were both married in 08, just a month or so apart.
I can tell you, we had the one night out, the four of us. I believe we ate at the Cheesecake Factory, but we went to see that movie at the theaters.
Couples Retreat?
It's become the defining movie of our friendship.
Was that the beginning of our
That's the beginning of like
career?
the consistency of hanging out.
Wow.
Not career. I mean, you're probably talking like 2011 or 12, I bet.
The hanging out just kind of proceeded from there, and then when was it that you got into cards? What year was that? Because you
Not then.
No,
Probably
exactly.
2012, 2013. So the Patriots won their last Super Bowl, the 2014 season, or the first of like the next round.
Okay.
They won 3 out of 4 early, and then when I was in high school, so they won 2001, 2003, 2004.
Okay.
They had a couple losses after that. 07 and 11, they lost to the Giants. 2014, they beat the Seahawks. The reason this is relevant is I was already in the card game for a good year or two before that. So like probably this time, 2012. So probably about 12 years ago right now, I started getting back into cards.
Okay.
I remember specifically putting out a Craigslist ad just like, hey, I still had a bunch of other random stuff at my dad's that I had left up north for a few years, got it and brought it back on one of my trips back here. I was like, let me just sell everything and go out and buy some stuff I like. It was probably $800.
That was 2012.
Yeah, that was like the summer of 2012-ish.
Because I remember for a time when I was living back up here, you were still painting. You were still driving the Ranger
I was
around.
painting until 2016 full-time and then half and half 2017.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because there was still a long time.
In 2018, I quit painting entirely.
Man, that is so crazy.
But I went to like that national show, the national
2018 national.
I'm sorry, it's like the Nashville national one.
Oh, yes.
The one that's like 800 tables now.
Yeah.
That used to just be at the Christian Lighthouse School in Antioch.
They still have that show.
Yeah, he
It's
still
just
runs
not, just not nearly the same as what it was, just because it's the big one is every 3 to 4 months.
Right. And then when they
this
do
one
that
is
show, they open up
every
both
few
sides of
weeks.
the gym. It's massive. There was also a card show. If you're coming off, I'm trying to think here, go on the way to Goodlettsville on Conference Drive. There's that one hotel on the right.
Yeah.
On top of the hill. They used to rent that place out too. There was a card show there like
did
once
they
every
really?
few months. Yep.
That's
when I kind of made my stuff.
So you would go to those card shows.
So I started going to the card shows once every couple months. Like again, still fairly newlywed. We were working all the time, and we couldn't miss work back then. And then the 2014 thing was significant. As soon as the Super Bowl happened in 2014, Brady stuff like went through the roof. Like that was the first time. The whole hobby did not, but Brady stuff like 10x'd.
When did you meet Brew?
That was like early 2016 off a eBay deal.
That was an eBay deal.
I bought something or he bought something, and one of us reached out like, "Hey, you live around the corner."
So
I'm not
Bruce
shipping
Breaks
this.
was the first company. You actually worked for him, I guess, wasn't it? Yeah. So it was like
So we needed-
he was already breaking.
He
wasn't
explained what breaking was to me. He was working
Yeah.
for Chicagoland. He's like, "Hey, I'm trying to break out on my own. Need an extra set of hands."
Yep.
For like, especially for shipping. Honestly, at the beginning, shipping
remember you did a
and
lot of
tracking
that.
down payments because it was all Facebook. You just claim the team you want.
Yeah.
But then somebody has to physically confirm, like, hey, did that actually come to the PayPal? Like, it was a whole big thing, man.
I remember that used to be like a time-consuming thing. Like,
Oh,
hey,
I would get a
our
list.
payments in.
Yeah, I would get a list on like a Thursday evening. Hey, here's the 9 breaks I ran the last 2 days. Go through and literally go through, cross off. Okay, these 18 guys didn't pay. These guys go on a tab. These guys have credit. It was a whole thing. Then I would do the shipping. And then, but to start it too, he said his big thing was, hey, we need startup money. And I think I had like, it was like $7,000 or $8,000. And he said, hey, I've got this Blake Bortles lot. There was a time, have you ever even heard that name?
Yes. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He was like Miami or something.
Jacksonville.
Terrible. Florida, yeah.
But there was a time, one off season, where people were like, hey, this is his year. And we started to see like some of these weird little spikes. So I sold a full 2-row box of Blake Bortles stuff for like $8,000. That's how we came up with the initial 15 grand.
Wow, that's crazy.
And then we made our first buy in Bowman of 2017 was our first buy. But say 2 or 3 years ago, you wanted to go to a distributor. Hey, I want to start buying product.
Yeah.
Okay, here's our retail rebuy list. It sells on Blow for $500. We have it for $498. Like that's it. There's no, okay, what if I want allocation? And back in the day, it was like, man, if you can ever work up to have like a $50,000 nut, like if you could have that in the tree,
Yeah.
that's enough. Like that's all the startup money you need. You can fuel the whole thing. Well, by that time, it was like, hey, you need to buy $200,000 worth of dead product for a relatively small allocation account.
Dead product.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, But I bring that up because we placed the order for Bowman. So 2017 Bowman, we placed that order in December of 2016. You order 5 months out.
Oh, wow.
We called all three, and talk about insanity. Hey, we want to order 80 cases. It was 70 or 80 cases. I don't ever remember the number. It always changes when I tell the story, but it was 70 to 80, somewhere in there. And back then, Bowman cases were like $600, $580, like dirt
Compared
cheap.
to like, what is it now? Like,
We just got
2000?
solicited for Chrome. They're $2,700. Yeah.
2,700.
And so we went to call GTS, called Peach State. Southern, of course, was local. We went down there, had a meeting. They were great, had us in. And it was like, all right, well, Peach State, hey, you know what? If you order from us, we'll deduct $2 a case. Oh, well, we'll deduct $3. Like, because it was such a big, that was a big order back then.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, no, we'll work with you on price. Like, we'll deduct money. Oh, no, let us come down. Now, if you went in, they just said, no, get out of here. The other thing, though, because we were a new account, this doesn't happen now. But we also, hey, we want a down payment. Like, we're not getting stuck with this, which is, again, such a foreign thought. To be stuck with Bowman now would be the greatest problem to ever have in the world.
Yeah.
I remember this, it was December, because I bought the Avalanche that week. I took out a cash advance on my credit card to help put down the money for the Bowman down payment.
Yeah.
And that was the year, though, it's like all of a sudden, Bowman started becoming a thing.
Now, had you broken before that Bowman product? Like, had you, because
I still wasn't breaking then.
Okay. That's,
not on camera.
Okay, that's what I thought.
The first break I ever did on camera for Bruised Breaks was on my anniversary. We left where we were having dinner in Hendersonville on our anniversary because at that point I was like, hey, Hannah, like, this thing's actually, there's something here. And I went to Bruce's house.
Really?
To break. Yeah, I was like, let me just finish the case and we'll go back out after. Yep. That was the first time I ever broke on camera.
I just remember, like, at those times, I would come to the house, and then that's when I mentioned this in the past. You would just have like you lived in a duplex, right? So
we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. Yep.
You would have it was crazy to think of it now, but you would just have cases and cases just stacked up to the ceiling, just waiting because like someone wouldn't be home and they would just drop it off.
Yep.
And you would just have to and then you would move it in, and that whole side room would be filled, like halfway filled at least, floor to ceiling with cases.
And the kitchen.
Into the kitchen, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was an 800 square foot apartment, yeah.
You broke for a while. You did geo breaks.
So 2018, April 1st, basically 2018, we split. I go on my own geo breaks.
And you and I are just hanging out.
It was about that time I brought Autumn on to start doing the books for me.
She was doing stuff even back then?
Yeah, I was like, I need to know what I'm making. I'm making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Again, because I went from making, like, when we were painting, our biggest thing was, can I make $3,000 a month? And then in the wintertime, it'll be like $1,500.
Yeah.
So realistically, like Tim's 1099 to me would be like $27,000 for the year.
Wow.
But
yeah.
I say that too. It's like we didn't care.
And also back then, it is funny how much
Rent was
inflation has.
$650.
It's funny how pricing has changed.
Sure.
But still, that's even back then. That wasn't a ton of money.
No,
and
we just
Hannah was working part time, right?
She was working 4 full days. No, she was working full time.
She was full time.
4 full days, and then she'd do the OR on Fridays.
Wow.
Like 1 or 2 a week, 1 or 2 a month. Yeah, it was super busy.
But you were just continuing to get busier and busier as the company was getting bigger and bigger.
Right.
And that's around when 2020 got to where you had to start making decisions of like, do I need to cut back?
At the beginning of 2020, I started having that thought. I was like, I've made a decent amount of money for me and her. We bought our house in 2019, June of 2019. Because, it got to the point where we got rid of at the apartment, we got rid of our kitchen table. We had nothing in the kitchen anymore.
Couldn't even, fit it.
I had like 150 cases in the house.
Yeah.
I had a storage unit we were paying for. I was like, Hannah, we're literally paying for a storage unit. We cannot eat in the kitchen anymore because of these cases. It just got to the point where I said, hey, maybe we should think about buying a house.
Yeah.
And that's when we bought the French Bayou house. We need to start spending, like, you just got to start buying stuff. I'll just sit on it. Everything you buy goes up. That's when we had one of those deals with Fanatics, my first deal with Fanatics. They called. I do occasional deals here and there, like little one-offs, but they called in 2019, so it would have been about April, right before we moved, as a matter of fact, because the cases got delivered there on a pallet truck. Hey, this is the first year Panini's letting us do a Prism SKU, and it was Panini Prism Fanatics exclusive blasters.
That's right.
They were $40 a box.
Yeah. Okay.
20 box cases, $800 a case. Zion. I flipped the day they showed up. I was literally downstairs. There were 2 pallets worth of stuff. I was cutting them open as fast as I can. I loaded up the whatever I was driving. It was probably the Explorer or something. Or the Avalanche. It was the Avalanche at the time. And I was like, I'm going down to Southern right now, and I'm going to sell
them back.
I sold like 80,000. I made like 60 grand in a day, and then I just slowly started selling them off as I went because they had 10x in price or 8x in price.
Yeah.
Had I held it all till the very end, it would have been way more. But I couldn't at that time. It was like, hey, there's so much going on. And then right after that too, like after that big deal, same thing. I was like, hey, you got to get money off the books. You got to start getting something else going.
Yeah.
We bought the townhouse, right? So we went from no houses to 2 houses in like 6 months. The townhouse right behind French Bayou.
Do you remember this? You used to do this all the time. You haven't done this in a while. You used to do this all the time. We drive down the road and you'd be like, hey, can you add up these numbers for me? And you would just start throwing out numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And I would just start I'd start adding. I'm like, all right, let me get the calculator now. I'll start adding it up. And then it's like, and then you would tell me at the end like what this meant or what that would be.
Yeah, because it'd be like case costs. Like, hey, GTS is giving us 6, Peach State's 12, Southern's 13. But hey, I can get cases from this guy because I traded him my football allocation for 2 products to get more Bowman. I need you to add all this up. What's my case average? Like, what's my case cost?
And it would be absolutely. And then you would say like, oh, this is what I actually paid for it. This is what they're going for now.
Yep.
The difference was absolutely out of this world. And that's really like I was taking note before when I was seeing like what you were doing. I thought it was fun just being on camera and all that. I thought that aspect of it was fun. But when I found out about what those boxes were flipping for, literally, that's when I started asking the questions of like middleman, like how is this even a thing? Like why are these distributors even here?
And you couldn't keep up with breaking because it'd be like, hey, here's 30 cases, but that was a small break room. Yeah. And you can only really break 2 or 3 days a week, full time, like 12-hour days. Because then I was a one-man show. Like I have to sort and ship all this too.
And that was
the other thing. Before we left the apartment, Hannah would get up for work at like 5 o'clock on the nose and get up and watch Wings every morning in the background. I would still be up from the night before, in the room sorting and shipping. But the breaking was so much. It's funny too because honestly, I bet we never sold more than 50,000 in a month of actual breaks. Now, granted, I would take 10 grand and sell it to Blowout or take 5 grand. The exact stuff which quite frankly, I don't even disagree. That's what Fanatics has cut out. If we're giving you cases, break them. But back then, it was like I couldn't keep up.
Do whatever you wanted.
But I'll dump some and just make a ton of money. I'll break a bunch. I'll hold a bunch so we have stuff through all the dead times.
You were working all the time. Like but there was so much demand. You kind of had to.
You couldn't slow down, and I never trust anybody else to do it with me. Like I just was like, I'm not going to let somebody else come in on the brand. It just doesn't. But we would only do 20 to 40,000 in sales in a good month, which now we'll do 10, 12x. I mean, we'll do $500,000 a month.
20,000 in a night now.
Oh, we've done 100,000 in a night. Yeah, yeah, like legitimate. So yeah, now it's. But back then the margin was so good. Here's a $600 case of draft.
Yeah,
cool. Or draft used to be $892, but yeah, it's snap filling at $2,900. So you do 6 of those in a row. Yeah, working there. COVID starts. We start hearing about this thing.
Yeah,
I was like, maybe stuff's gonna shut down. We had so much money in inventory, and my whole thought was the hobby has to die. Like if people can't leave their house to work, they're not going to buy cards.
I remember
total swing and a miss.
Yeah.
Eddie out of the blue messaged me. He was like, hey, and Eddie used to buy into breaks occasionally. He's like, hey, I'm serious. I want to buy this. Sold him the company. Thankfully, he let me retain 20% to stay involved. And that's when we shipped everything out to him, and I took a few months off. That was August 1st, basically. Maybe end of July, I mean. We just had our 4-year anniversary, as a matter of fact. And that's when I took like a month or 2 off. And that's when the podcast started there for me on Facebook. Because I was sitting around bored. I went out and bought a few houses to flip with Sky. Yeah. But I was like, I need something to do. And we were printing money doing the real estate. Which is the timing, by the way, the most important thing to any financial success I've had. It just is. If we walk in 2 years later, distributors shut the door. If we bought that house on freaking Dana Drive for $130,000.
I remember
in Hendersonville. And then when we sold it,
you made $100,000 on that house.
A lot more than $100,000. Because Marla was like, this is the highest square footage price in the city at the time. People walked in, it wasn't done. Yeah. The house up north, so again, just very much timing. And yeah, I'd like to think, hey, we had the guts to go nuts when I had a feeling.
Sure.
But a lot of it was very much just timing. But anyways, got very, very bored and was like, I'm going to start looking for content because podcasts were kind of taking off then. Mm-hmm. There was nothing to do. I didn't hear anything I liked. Hey, let me start doing this Facebook Live thing because we still had a good community, which was cool. That's when the Kyle thing happened, then me and you. I was on my vacation for my anniversary in Montana. We drove across country that year. And when I came back, that's when me and Kyle had our falling out, and that was when it was like me and you.
Yes. Yeah. And that's when
I was like, I remember even asking, I was like, hey, like, I know you're doing the off-air, like you're doing because we were just sending you sound. Remember, you weren't even on some of those when we were doing it.
No, yeah, some of those I was not. And when you would send me this stuff, I would just, I would clean it up as much as I can. I would
Sure.
cut something here or there, and then it was just like the rest of it was just like, how do I get this out to people? That was my
Right.
main job, is like, how do I get this out to
distribution.
podcasts? How do I get it on social media?
Yep,
So
clips.
that was the first time I ever got on TikTok, was to post the clips for the podcast.
Right. Yes, that would have been like November 1st ish of 2020.